Hi. This week on the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks Show, we'll be looking into the backstory of one of Flash's more obscure villains. Now, he has a pretty colorful path. That's right, I'll be doing the paint by numbers of the Rainbow Raider. Yep, so along with the usual spoiler warning, I also want to give a pun warning for this episode. I mean, it's just too easy with this character. And that's what we'll be doing here on the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks Show. We'll be learning and talking about the origins and backstories of heroes, villains, and sidekicks throughout the comic book universe and pop culture. We'll look at both popular characters and obscure characters you may have never heard of, but I think you'll really dig. So I've mentioned in other shows, especially the episode where I talked about Wally West, the Kid Flash, that I love The Flash. I've also had the opportunity to talk to some listeners, and they mentioned that they like that I not only talk about the really popular characters, but I also shed some light on characters that aren't really known to the greater public. So I thought, let's do an obscure Flash villain series and blend how much I dig the Flash and how much I get a kick out of some of these older Flash villains that we don't hear about every day. Yes, the Flash has a killer rogues gallery, but he's been around forever and there are hundreds of villains that the Flash has battled other than the usual suspects. And the Rainbow Raider definitely falls under the heading unusual suspect and is obscure as it gets. So let's get into the villain's colorful origin. Yeah, I went there. Like I said, there's going to be some puns. I'd like to think it's the last one, but don't count on it. Roy G. Bigelow, aka Rainbow Raider, first appeared in The Flash Volume 1, number 286 in June of 1980. He was created by writer Gary Bates and artist Don Heck. And if you remember your color theory or you learned how you learned the rainbow when you were a kid, then you might have recognized what they were going for when they named this character. They were just going for it. There was no ambiguity here. So if you learned your rainbows and colors like I did, you were told to remember the name of the colors in the rainbow by remembering the name Roy G. Biv as a mnemonic for the colors red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, and violet. So what they did when they created this character, they just slapped an Olo at the end and presto, cheesy character name. So young Roy always wanted to be an artist. He loved art and painting and dreamed of becoming a painter and making art his life. Great dream, right? Now, the only problem was that Roy was colorblind. He would paint amazing scenes. He had talent. He could paint, but the colors were off, or they would clash, or they'd just be black and white type things and muted. Actually, the drawings and the paintings in the comic looked pretty good. Maybe if he had a little bit more instruction, he could have gotten this down a little bit. But when his parents took him over to see a respected art critic, he said that the art critic said that his work was, quote, nothing short of revolting. Of course, this crushed the boy's dreams. Now, Roy's dad was crushed that his son could never live out his dream as an artist, and he promised Roy that he would fix him and cure his color blindness. See, Roy's dad was a whiz scientist and an optometrist, right? That's very convenient. So he got to work on trying to cure his boy. But his dad was ill, and try as he might, he could not cure color blindness. So he did what he was able. He created a pair of what he called Prisma glasses. When he handed them to his son, he said he was waiting till they were perfected, and they were. His last words to his son were, "Make good use of them, son. They will be your compensation." And then he died. When Roy put on the glasses, he thought he would finally see the world in color like anyone else. But he was still colorblind. Then, when trying to remove the glasses, his fingers brushed against several hidden switches. When he hit one of them, a rainbow beam shot out of them. In short order, as I guess one does when a rainbow shoots out of your glasses, Roy realized the rainbow was actually solid light particles that he could slide on and, move around. It's sort of like how the Iceman slides on the ice slides he creates. He could sort of ride them. Now, here's what I don't understand, right? You're thinking, what could it be? There's so many things. But here's what I don't understand. What did Roy's father think his son was going to do with these? Now, he said they would be your compensation. Now, he's still colorblind, and he can't be the artist he wants to be. But he can, he soon discovers, right, ride around on a rainbow and do other color-related feats. Now, what type of chromatic feats can Roy perform with his new glasses? He can, as we've learned, ride around on a rainbow. He can also shoot different colored beams that when they're directed at a person can alter their mood. So, for example, Roy hits you with a red beam and you will get very angry, uncontrollable anger, to the point where you just start attacking people. Or, let's say yellow, and you're scared. So again, this is a pretty basic character, pretty monochromatic character. Again, I know, another pun. So like we discussed, not a lot of nuance here. Now, he can also coat an enemy with a black beam, which is kind of one of the more neater powers here. And coating them with black light, this black light that they're coated with, it absorbs all the light hitting the enemy. So like no light bounces off them, and that's how we see things, right? Light hits something, it absorbs certain rays of it and gives off other rays, and that's how we see color. Well, this black beam hits somebody, so all light hits the person and nothing is absorbed, so they look completely white. They look like a ghost. The comic book, looks just like line art when this happens. There's no coloring. And again, there are a lot of pictures over on the site. If you go to the episodes page for this post, you can see what I'm talking about. So again, back to this. What did his dad think he was going to do with these glasses? Not sure. If you have any ideas, put them in the post. I'd love to know. And like, what is he going to be able to do? I guess he could be a therapist. He could shoot him with a beam that could make them happy, maybe. Or that's pretty superficial. Maybe a magician. I don't know. I mean, what could his dad be thinking he could do with these? But I think you know where Roy lands. That's right, super criminal. And now a quick word from our sponsor, Discount Comic Book Service. That's right, DCB Service. Get your comics 40 to 50% off. I've been using these guys for years, since early 2000, I want to say 2005, 2006. You order your books through the website, or you can do what I do. I download an Excel sheet, and I just look at the books on the Excel sheet, and I put my little 1, 2, 3, how many ever I want, the quantity-wise in there, and it totals them all up. I then send the Excel sheet in and pay, and then I get my books monthly. You can get them every 2 weeks. You can get them every week if you want. It all depends on how you want to pay shipping-wise. Shipping is very cheap. Books come fantastically packed. I've never had a problem. Let's take a look right now. I'm actually pulled up my January 2017 Excel sheet, and since we talked about the Flash, let's look at some of the Flash specials. So, for example, if you collect the Flash 18 and 19. They're both there. They are 40% off. So they are $2.99. You'd be getting them for $1.79. That's fantastic. I mean, that's pretty cheap. What else do we have? Of course, they have different trade paperbacks. Flash by Mark Waid. Amazing trades. Both 1 and 2, they have 50% off. So they're usually $34.99. You would get them for $17.49. And they also, of course, since you're ordering through previews, you can find different things, not just comics. So you can get the here's the DC watch collection. So this is a watch collection. So if you're into even just like the memorabilia or the toys and stuff, this watch is $34.95. It's 25% off. You get it for $26. They also have a Flash TVC PVC statue. It's $50 usually, but you'd get it 25% off for $37.50. So here's another one, Flash logo pewter keyring. Usually $5.99, 30% off. It's $4.19. So not only comics and trades, but also toys or statues or T-shirts. Again, I've been using these guys forever. They are fantastic. I mean, just the money savings alone is incredible. So check it out, dcbservice.com, Discount Comic Book Service. So Roy decides to become an art thief, stealing paintings and priceless works of art. He feels if he cannot see the paintings as he puts in all their glory, then no one will. What a jerk, right? I mean, I feel for the guy as a kid, but him as an adult is a pretty selfish jerk. So let's get to his first run-in with the Scarlet Speedster. Flash gets a call that a museum is being robbed. He rushes into action only to discover that the guards in the lobby are in tears and they're unable to move. They're just so sad, they're crying. You guessed it, Rainbow Raider hit them with a blue light and made them sad. So Flash and the Raider tussle. Roy shoots some beams at Flash but misses. Flash then knocks him down. Raider then does a sneaky little move by shooting a black light beam at the Flash. Now the Flash doesn't dodge it because Roy's not aiming at him. He thinks his aim is off because he's sort of been knocked out a little bit. But Roy was aiming at a mirror behind the Flash, so that was kind of neat. Now the black beam strikes the Flash and the Rainbow Raider escapes. Flash is disoriented. He races home and he looks in a mirror and he finds out he is completely white. So the colorist got to slack off a bit on a bunch of panels with the Flash in him because he just looks just like line art. There's no red of the suit, there's nothing. And again, I posted a bunch of pics over at the site. So this is actually a neat little trick. Looking at Barry and the Flash right now, it's pretty hard to miss who the Flash is. If you knew you hit him with this beam, you've got to look for a guy who looks like a ghost, and that's the Flash. But Barry is a crafty one. And he puts some flesh-colored makeup on, all over his body actually, which is funny. I mean, just do up to your elbows, maybe your head to your neck. But no, Barry is thorough. He puts it all over him, his chest, everything. And then he puts some yellow peroxide in his hair. It shows him sort of lathering it up. Again, I would probably have done that before I put all the makeup on, but whatever. And he gets dressed and he goes out the door. Now in short order, Rainbow Raider commits another crime and the Flash springs into action. Another neat touch here is that Barry's suit is still white, but his face is flesh color from the makeup. Again, you can check the pics out over on the episodes page. So Barry is chasing Roy on one of his rainbow slides and is knocked off by a white beam light. It sort of flashes in Barry's eyes. He gets a little disoriented and he falls. Now, as Barry falls, he vibrates through a green car. And when he comes out the other side of the car, he is all green. His face, his costume, everything. Barry realizes he vibrated through the car at the precise wavelength as the color green. Thus, he is now the Emerald Speedster. Just kidding. He then, of course, realizes what he needs to do. He runs through a yellow bus, a blue car, and so on. When he's all finished, he looks like he was sort of dipped in a rainbow. It's sort of all swirling around him, and he does. He looks like a sort of running rainbow. And then he realizes if he just vibrates one more time to his normal vibration, that all the colors will snap back into place. So that's what he does. He vibrates, and bang, he is flesh colored. He's got the red suit. He is the Scarlet Speedster once again. The Flash then runs around Roy, dodging his beams, and it's hard to tell in the drawing, but it looks like he's kicking dirt all over him. It's hard to tell until the end of it. He's sort of kicking dirt around him, and then Roy is incapacitated, sort of laying on the ground, totally covered in dirt. His hands are sort of buried, and Flash runs over and quickly removes his goggles. And I have to actually quote the Flash here. I'm going to read something right from the book because I just couldn't make this up if I wanted to. So the Flash says, and I quote, after he stops him, "This is the end of the line for you, not to mention the end of the rainbow." I mean, you have to love Silver and Bronze Age books. Simple and fun. Now, if I've sounded at all dismissive or that I don't like the era these villains are in, or these villains of this era, nothing can be farther from the truth. I love this stuff. You just need to accept all the wackiness. But Rainbow Raider never really had much luck in his endeavors. He was always defeated by the Flash, or really whoever he came up against. Whether it was the JLA or Booster Gold, Roy always came up short. In the end, he was actually killed by another villain. Then he was brought back in the New 52 with a new name, Chroma, which is a better name. But of course, unfortunately, he was promptly killed again. Now, one of the weirdest things I found out about this character while researching was that after he died, before the New 52, a group of color-powered baddies formed a group called the Rainbow Raiders as a tribute to Rainbow Raider. Now, okay, that's strange enough because it's not like he was, this great villain. But get this, during Blackest Night, the Raiders believed that the Black Lanterns were going to come out on top. So they committed mass suicide. The whole team killed themselves so they could come back as Black Raiders. They figured they picked the winning team. But here's the rub. To come back as a Black Lantern, you need to have an emotional tie to someone or something on Earth. And since they didn't really care about anybody and nobody cared about them, they just plain died. I mean, I just found that so weird. A supervillain team commits mass suicide, hoping to come back as a different kind of bad guy. Truly strange. But these are some of the obscure characters of The Flash. Rainbow Raider is one of my favorites. I used to love that book, the cover of it. I'll post the cover in the episodes page. I have that copy, so I was able to go through it and read it again. It was really great. Now, we looked at Rainbow Raider today. Next time we look at one of these obscure victims, I'm not sure who I'm going to choose. Again, I got a chance to talk to some people over on the Facebook page, and they mentioned some that they'd like to see. So I'm going to look through that and maybe pick one for later in the month. I want to thank you for listening to the show. This was a really fun one. Again, I love The Flash. I love these old Bronze Age heroes. And remember, you can go over to the website, heroesvillainsandsidekicks.com, to listen to the show. Or better yet, head over to iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. Now, the reviews, what they do is they help bump us up certain lists and rankings so that other people can learn about the show. So head over there, subscribe, and leave a review. Speaking of reviews, we have been getting some new reviews over at iTunes, and I want to thank I Am the Cannonball and Dangerford for leaving reviews. Now, if you have an idea about a character you'd like to learn about, just head over to the website, the Heroes, Villains, and Sidekicks.com, and right on the homepage, there's a little form where you can shoot me an email. You can just say, who you'd like to hear. If you leave your name, you don't have to. We'll mention that in the show. Now, you can also check out our Facebook group and leave a message over there. So again, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with more. Take care.